So one of the movies that I've been talking up a lot in the last couple years has been the Hurricane Heist. And part of that, honestly, is me just being cheeky. But, no joke, totally honest, I legitimately love that film. I love that film because I feel like it is just the right amount of stupid that it can have fun with its own premise, and yet it doesn't pour that stupidity on to such a point where it just becomes ridiculous. And that's a hard line to walk. It really is. In anything, and in any genre of film, but action movies especially. You're trying to balance the unbelievability of your situation with enough grounding that you can enjoy it, but enough of a self-awareness that you can still have fun with the premise. And getting that balance right is difficult, but I can tell you, back in the 90s, that was a hard line. You know, the 90s had a real problem with it. The 90s had a real problem with a lot of things, but it had a real problem with that in our action movies. Sometimes they got it right. You get it right and you get something great like Con Air. You get it wrong, you end up with Street Fighter, or basically any movie from the Jean-Claude Van Damme filmography. This is why I've never been a big fan of things like Sharknado, because the Sharknado films are out there deliberately to be bad. And I don't know, I think to make a genuinely so bad it's a good movie, you actually have to be trying to make a good movie. But the charm of it kind of outlives the inadequacies of it. Anywho, now you toss into that mix in the 90s, you toss into that mix a director who is visually stunning and has a very, very distinct cinematic language that he likes to use, but who also tends to side with the style over substance arguments, and you're gonna get a mixed bag. I was not a fan of Face Off. I felt it was boring. Of course, I did see it when I was sick, I remember. So that might have had something to do with it. However, I felt like the follow-up to that worked really well and has become one of my go-to fun-time action movies, and I'm speaking of 1996's Broken Arrow. Now, before we get into the review, I want to just call your attention to this. So look at this. So this is the original poster art. Now look at this. John Travolta, front and center, and Christian Slater like looking over his shoulder like, "Hi, can I be in the movie too?" Now here's the thing. John Travolta is the villain. He's the bad guy. And Christian Slater is our hero. Now, yes, John Travolta's character is much bigger, much broader. He was the much bigger star, but he's still the bad guy. I understand giving him top billing, but why are you putting his face like so much more prominently on the advertising and putting your hero of the film again looking like, is there a movie over there? Can I be in that? I find this to be a very American thing. Consider this. Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson got top billing in all of the Harry Potter movies. This is over Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith, Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh, Robbie Coltrane, basically the entire pantheon of amazing British actors. But because they were the main characters, they were top billing. So this is just something I notice sometimes. Anyway, I wanted to get off on that rant before I get off on the rants about the movie. So let's talk about this fun little action film that I don't think ever really got the props it deserved. Part of the reason for that is I think its premise may not have been crazy enough. I think the reason why people remember Face Off as opposed to this one is because Face Off had a bizarre fucking concept. Whereas this one had a fairly standard 90s action movie plot. So you have these two Air Force pilots played by John Travolta and Christian Slater. One night they are flying a stealth bomber over Utah, just doing, war games types things. And they're going up with two live nukes to see if the radiation from the nukes shows up on the tracking systems to see how well the stealth bomber actually works. Well, in the middle of this, John Travolta's character does a heel turn, attempts to kill Christian Slater, doesn't, but it turns out he's trying to steal the nuclear weapons to do bad, action movie bad guy things with them. So now Christian Slater, who ends up teaming up with a park ranger played by Samantha Mathis, they have to basically chase him down, stop him from doing what he's doing, and, do action movie things. So from that, you can tell this is working more off the very standard action movie scenario. You could see this being a movie Bruce Willis would be in. But where the John Wooiness of it comes in is in two places. First of all, there is the performance of John Travolta. Now, I've been told I say this too much, but I like it. It's become a catchphrase. Maybe we'll do another t-shirt with it. But John Travolta, whoo baby, is he chewing the scenery and flossing with the props. Like, he is just so fucking over the edge in a great way, in a fantastic way. Like, it is so hammy and so cheesy, which you can understand because that was the other thing that got Face Off a lot of press, was Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, but mostly Nicolas Cage, just hamming it up for the entirety of that movie. So they're like, well, if that got us a lot of press the first time, it'll get us a lot of press this time. It didn't quite work out that way. But still, I find John Travolta very, very engaging in this, even when he is at his goofiest. You sometimes wonder, it's like, and he got confused, and you're thinking, does he think he's in the next Batman sequel? Because his overacting really would fit in some of those Joel Schumacher Batman films. Hell, watching this the other day, I was like, how come we haven't tapped him to play a Marvel villain yet? Because they really, really fucking should. They really, really fucking should. So he is going apeshit. I've always liked Christian Slater as an actor. I know he's had his issues, as most kids in Hollywood tend to have, but I've always liked him as an actor. I think he's got a unique energy. I know the joke has been that he's basically a bad Jack Nicholson clone, but I've never seen that. I don't see that in his performances or in his delivery. Their voices are a little similar, but that's about it. So Christian Slater has the difficult task of having to be the hero in an action movie, having to be a believable hero in an action movie, going up against the overacting machine that is John Travolta. That is not an enviable task. But I think he pulls it off. I've used this one a lot too. He's basically the Adam West of this. For new viewers, of course, if you've seen the Adam West Batman show, you know that it was a home for celebrities to come and ham it up playing villains, and Adam West always had to be the eternal straight man. Still playing up his character in bold and brassy ways, but it was there to let the villains kind of let loose. And he has to do that same thing. He still has to be big and bold in a John Woo action movie type way, but he also has to ground the film in a form of reality so that we still care about the stakes, but we still have fun with it. Not easy, and he does a really great job of it. Another thing I really like about this movie is that, again, with action movies, especially action movies of the 80s and 90s, the villain-hero relationship was always very important. How the villain and hero matched up and how they play off each other. You think of, again, Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman in Die Hard. And this film sets up, like, from the first shot, like the very first shot is this, that these two have an established relationship. They call it a friendship. But it's clear that John Travolta is the dominant personality in that relationship in every regard. He's the higher rank in the Air Force. He's the better boxer. The opening scene is them boxing and John Travolta beating the shit out of Christian Slater. You get the feeling that there is a weird kind of big brother relationship going on here with these two. But you also see that, John Travolta, as a lot of Big Brother can be, is kind of a bully and is kind of enjoying being a bully. So you're given some good hints right off the top. We know going in that he's going to be the bad guy, but you get some hints that, if you're going in cold, that this guy is not on the right track. And Christian Slater does a great job. If this movie can be said to have an arc, it's Christian Slater kind of stepping out of John Travolta's shadow and becoming and outwitting him. They set up in the beginning that everything these two guys do is a game. It's always who's going to win, who's going to come out on top. And you get the feeling that John Travolta wins more of them than Christian Slater does. But Christian Slater gets his licks in. We see right away that Christian Slater, while he's not as big and as brawny, he's clever. They're boxing, and John Travolta's lecturing him and beating the shit out of him. And Slater says, well, I've always liked Bruce Lee movies, and lifts his leg up like he's going to kick him. John Travolta blinks, and then boom, boom, boom. Like this scene immediately afterwards, they always bet $20. That's another running thing, is they always bet $20 of who's going to do what. And Christian Slater gives them the $20 for beating him. And John Travolta says, no, I'll take it. He says, no, it's yours. No, take it. He's like, no, I mean, it really is yours. I took it out of your wallet while you were in the shower. So right away, it's a funny joke, but right away we get that these two, while Christian Slater may not be in Travolta's league physically or in some other aspects, he's a thinker and he's going to find a way to get around problems. So I think it's really clever character development for a film where we're not going to worry a lot about character development. We want to just get to the bits. But it establishes very, very clearly and very early, here's our hero, here's our villain, here's how they think, here's how they relate to each other, and that's how this is going to pay off through the film. Throughout the entire film, every action beat, every chase, every set piece, it's always a question of who won the round. So these guys do a great job in here. I also have to give a shout out. This is actually a 3-person cast, and the fact that she's not featured on the poster and all that, I think is very indicative of 90s and even today Hollywood gender politics. Now, granted, Samantha Mathis is not as big a name as either one of these guys, but she is the third lead in the movie. So Christian Slater teams up with her when she finds him after his plane crashes, and she is kind of drawn into the mess and goes along with him. And I think she's probably one of the best female action co-stars of this time. And that was not easy, especially at the time. Women in action movies, boy, did they get a raw deal, because they were one of two things. They were either the damsel in distress, the trophy, or, if they tried to make them the partner of the hero, they were too overly sexualized or too much of a ball breaker, because eventually our man hero is going to take her down a peg, or even if he doesn't take her down a peg, she's going to come down because she really likes him and all that. And I don't see any of that in Samantha Mathis's character. She's not as trained as he is. He's in the military. She's a park ranger. But she holds her own in several of the fights. The first scene they have is a fight together, and she's holding her own. She beats up a couple of guys in this. She is not a damsel in distress. He does come to, quote-unquote, rescue her in the end, but it turns out she doesn't really need the rescuing, and she bails his ass out a couple times too. So it really does feel like an equal partnership. The other thing I like is not until really the very end are we ever given any kind of indication this could be a romantic relationship between the two of them. They have some moments of dialogue. They're like, oh, are they hitting on each other? But their dialogue is usually what has to happen, where is he going, how are we going to get there first, how are we going to get away, how are we going to outsmart him. You know, very little of it is, oh my God, I find you so sexy. You know, you get the feeling at the end they're going to hook up, but that's not the focus of the movie, and it's not her point in the movie. She really does feel like an equal partner to Christian Slater in the hero role, at least in my opinion. She's not over-sexualized. There is a weird scene, and it's very bizarre. And I'm not sure how to feel about it, really. So towards the end, they've got one of the nuclear bombs on a train, and they're heading in. They're going to blow up a city. And Samantha Mathis ends up on the train with them. She gets caught, of course. And John Travolta is wondering, would she type in the code to arm the bomb, or would she eat a bullet? You know, which way would she fold or whatever? So he challenges her to do this. So he's standing behind her, with the gun and telling her, go press this. And he's running the gun down her. And she's doing these weird things with her face. He's like got the gun to her head. She's like, and I'm just like, what is that supposed to be? I have a feeling I know what it's supposed to be. But it feels fucking weird and dirty and wrong. And I have a feeling that's what they were trying to go for, but I think it feels weird and dirty and wrong in the wrong fucking way, And it's really out of sorts for a character that we haven't had that type of relationship as an audience with. I think another thing this movie does very, very well. Two things this movie does very well. First of all, its choice of location. We're used to action movies taking place in very industrial locations. Skyscrapers, airplanes, boats, cities. This one is out in the middle of the Utah desert. The park. So you've got a lot of different terrain. You've got wide open areas. There's a feeling of isolation, but also a feeling of grandeur. So you've got helicopter chases. You've got a really great car chase. You've got action scenes in an old mine, on a train. The different locations really help the action stay fresh and fun. I also think that for the most part, I'd say 98%, the action in this movie is, again, right on that line of being flashy for the sake of the audience, and it looks really good, and there's some great beats. But not being the over-choreographed thing that we have come to expect in some of our action movies now. You watch things like, the only one that comes to mind right now, because I remember I railed on it when it came out, is that The Hitman's Bodyguard, where the action beats, both the fighting and the gun chases and everything, are so perfectly timed that it doesn't look like a fight, it looks like a ballet. Nothing against ballet, just saying. And this one, I think, walks that line. It gives you those flashy moments, those highly choreographed moments, but it doesn't quite go over the edge. So, yeah, so that's why it's such a fun and interesting movie to watch. Is this movie perfect? Well, clearly not. It's a 90s action film. I think the biggest problem is that in certain cases it's over-directed. Now, John Woo's over-the-top style is part of this movie's charm. So I'm not saying get rid of that. But I'm saying there are a lot of shots that they slow down for John to do this evil look in slow motion while this chorus is behind him. There is the the places where it happens the most, ironically, is in the very end. It avoids a lot of that, and you accept it when it does happen. During the rest of the film, it's just kind of, okay, that's just the way the director works. But there are a couple instances in the end that are just so dumb that it really sucks you out of the film. So I mentioned, Samantha Mathis in the train car with the bomb, and when the scene starts, she's in there with one guy. She kills him. You're in a train car. There is no visible entrance or exit on either side of this car. The only entrance you see are the sliding doors on the sides. Okay? We get a full shot. The guy is sitting almost like I am to this chair. There's about as much room between him and, the back of this car as there is between me and the back of my seat right now. So we're very clear that they are the only two people in this car. She kills this guy. She comes around with her back to the wall of the train car to try to disarm the bomb. Suddenly, there's a gun to her head, and John Travolta is behind her. How the fuck did he get there? Did he fucking teleport? How in the fuck did he do that? Okay? I mean, it is just it's so out of nowhere. The only way into those cars were the sliding doors. How in the fuck did he get in there and behind her without her seeing? So that's one. The second one comes at the very end. So we have a great climactic battle scene between John Travolta and Christian Slater. A great battle. It's well choreographed. It's exciting. It finishes the character arc these two have been on the entire film. It ends, the train crashing, everything blowing up, it's the 90s movie. John Travolta is at one end of the train car. The bomb with this pointy arrow thing, I guess because it's supposed to be a broken arrow, get it, is at the other. The train slams into the other train. The bomb flies off, sails across the room, and impales him Green Goblin style. Okay? So, the way it's shot, the train hits, the missile flies, boom, it flies past. We see John Travolta on the floor, ground up. We see another shot of it flying past the door. John Travolta standing up. It flies past the door a third fucking time before finally slamming into the dummy that they have propped up and flying out of the room and blowing up. So not only does it sail past the door 3 times, but because back then they were still using because we didn't use CGI as much, and this movie is a lot of practical effects. There's some model work, some really great model work going on there, but it's a lot of practical effects. They do some great shots of when they kill Howie Long. Yes, the football player Howie Long is in this, and from this movie they decided he should do his own action movie. Anywho, he gets kicked out of the train and flies off of this bridge, and that death scene looks great. It looks phenomenal, and it looks practical. When John Travolta dies, it is so very clear they're using one of those, dummies for the shot, and the whole sequence makes what should be a fantastic climactic battle scene comical. It's a great scene up until that point, and then you're just like, oh, come on. It's a part where, but here's the thing I gotta stress, and I think I've covered this further. One of the reasons I love this movie one of the reasons that I love things like the Hurricane Heist is not in spite of the stupidity of them, but because of it. The stupidity and the goofier moments, the over-the-top acting, it's the charm. This movie has a lot of charm to me. And like I said, it is one of my favorite go-to action movies. I just kind of want to throw an action movie on, just for some fun. It's a popcorn movie. It is the definition of a popcorn movie. Go, eat your popcorn, have a good time. So if you've never seen this one or you haven't seen it in a while, I say check it out again. It's worth the time. So that's my take on Broken Arrow. So thank you for joining me. As always, we're muddling through day by day by day. And we're going to get through it. So keep calm and carry on. And as always, drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.